I'd like to support the amendment by Deputy Doherty. I think the moral case for retroactive recapitalisation is absolutely clear. You have a country with less than 1% of the population of Europe shouldering the burden for 42% of the total European banking crisis. And despite all the attempts by the government and echoed by the right-wing economists to suggest that this is a done deal, it's over, banks are not a problem, the bailout is not a problem for us anymore, this remains the central political issue in Ireland today. It's central to the nature of the budget that we had the other day. That 64 billion is a very, very important part of the massive national debt that we have. But also the banking crisis and the policies around the banking crisis are responsible for the explosion of our debt. From 25%, a debt-to-GDP ratio of 25% to over 120% that we currently have. That is all rooted in the policy of bailing out banks, bailing out developers at the expense of working-class people. And so the payments that we make on the national debt are still rooted in this decision. The fact that next year, for every €5 collected in tax, €1 will go to pay the bondholders, is rooted in this decision, made in the interests of the European banking system, made at the behest and under the threat, undoubtedly, of the European Central Bank, but made not in the interests of working class people here or anywhere else in Europe. And the legal case for an application is also absolutely clear. An application can be made. The other finance ministers can say no, or they can say yes, but we will have clarity. The minister can make an application and should make an application. So the question is, why is the minister less than enthusiastic about making such an application? And I think the answer is simple. It's to avoid political embarrassment. To avoid political embarrassment with his co-finance ministers across Europe, and to avoid political embarrassment at home with the exposure of the strategy of being the good pupil of austerity. And the source of that embarrassment, it stems from June 2012, it stems from the Eurogroup summit and the statement which was gotten at that stage, where, to quote, we affirm that it is imperative to break the vicious circle between banks and sovereigns. And later on, the Eurogroup will examine the situation of the Irish financial sector with the view of further improving the sustainability of the well-performing adjustment programme. And we all know how that was translated at home by the government. It was translated by the Taoiseach and then Taoiseach into a game changer and into a seismic shift, with the assistance of most of the media in this country, and they also assisted that translation into the message that went home for political benefit, was that, okay, Irish people, working people, etc., we're going to get our money back in terms of this deal, and that's what's been agreed. Of course, the reality was at that stage, and we pointed it out, is that it was not written down. I'm sure it's the case that the minister at that stage got a nod and a wink from Angela Merkel and from others that the money, something would be forthcoming, but it was not written down at that stage. And it's like what they say about an oral contract, it's worth the paper that it's written on. And so it was oversold at home, it never transpired, and it's now very clear, I mean, from all statements, etc., from across Europe, from all the leading figures, that the establishment across Europe have no interest in this retroactive recapitalisation taking place. And so I think Minister Noonan would like to avoid the embarrassment of going to the other finance ministers and saying, oh, could we have our money back? I thought that's what we agreed 2 years ago. Please, could we have our money back now? Because it's not the way so-called European solidarity works. European solidarity works in the interests of the banks, with people across Europe paying for the banks again and again and again, but not ordinary people getting any money back from that. And it's seen as a bit impolite to go and ask for money back for the benefit of ordinary people as opposed to for the banks. I think the Minister would like to avoid a definitive no, and I think that's most likely the answer that they would get. I mean, the total fund here available for all of Europe for recapitalisation, retroactive or otherwise, is 60 billion. Ireland would have a case for 64 billion, so clearly the ESM itself and the ability to directly recapitalise banks is entirely inadequate. And I also think then that the question of political embarrassment at home, because the whole strategy of the government in terms of this issue of being the good pupil of austerity, getting the slap on the back from the likes of Sarkozy and Merkel, would lie completely in tatters, and the idea of an alternative strategy would be given succour. I think we should pass this amendment. I think we should send Minister Noonan to go and ask very clearly for direct retroactive recapitalisation, and we should get a clear answer. And regardless of that answer, if that answer was a no, which I think is the most likely scenario by a long shot, the moral case would remain for this being not our debt and for an alternative strategy to be put in place. And so a left government would put in place a debt repudiation strategy for the debt that is simply not our debt. It would impose a moratorium on debt repayments. It would initiate a debt audit commission made up of representatives of ordinary people, progressive, left economists, experts from around the world, and essentially we should and still can refuse to pay that debt that is not our debt.